All right, welcome everyone to another Secnora's episode of Secure by Design podcast. I'm Daniel Kulik. I'm your host. If you have been with us for a while, you know we have had many smart and respected voices on this podcast, all exploring, of course, cybersecurity from multiple angles, different angles. But today is different. Today is a breakthrough moment for Secure by Design. Uh, you know why? Because today's guest is truly special. This is what I think. And I met Len last year in Atlanta at Hackers Halted, and I was immediately struck by his keynote that I witnessed. It was not just insightful, it was unforgettable, and I've never heard anybody speaking about this. So he spoke about the fusion of human and machine, the future of cyber defense, and the ethical questions we can no longer avoid as the technology keeps moving faster and faster. Len is often described as the world's first augmented hacker, and he's one of the most unique voices in this space today. This is my opinion, and many experts also say that. He's a transhuman biohacker storyteller, and now the subject of the documentary "I'm a Machine." This is a man exploring what actually happens when AI can fake you and technology can actually upgrade you, and the line between biology and machine starts to boom disappear. So Len, it's a real pleasure to have you with us. Welcome to Secure by Design, ladies and gentlemen. Len Noe,
It's
please.
pronounced. It's just pronounced no. And
No.
if you ask, yep,
Okay. See, I should have
yep,
asked that question. I was actually wondering how you pronounce it. Okay, no, Len, no.
yeah, if you
Okay,
ask my parents, I was named very, very appropriately because I've heard Len, no, 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 pretty much my entire life. So
I hope
really
I
happy to
hope
be
I
here.
hope you forgive me, but
No,
yeah,
absolutely.
but for sure, that's another thing I'm not gonna forget about you. It's no,
Good.
no to forget.
Not.
Okay,
I'm a
awesome. So
easy guy.
yeah, I am so hyped and excited to actually to host you today, and I have so many questions I would like to ask you today. I'll probably not ask all of them, but I asked the ones that I thought were kind of like drilling into my head deeply, and
I'm grateful for the
I will.
opportunity to be.
So let me start with you,
Ooh,
Len. I
mm,
have
gotta,
I have a main question for you. I mean,
I'm
I
sorry.
think
Before we get to your question, we got to update your slide here. Yes, I'm a biohacker. 6 implants? No, 11.
I will make sure I will always come more prepared than this time, but you surprised me definitely. 11. Okay. So let's do that. Let's make it 11. 11 transplants. Okay. Got it. Got it. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Um, okay, Len, like first question. When people hear the word transhuman and immediately, you know, thinks science fiction. That's what I think. And people, that I've been talking about you, they said, "Hey, this is science fiction." But in simple terms, what does that mean to you personally? Not from the definition. And why did you choose to live it? Not just talk about it. You could just chosen to just not live it, but just talk about this. Like theory.
Well, one correction, and unless you're in my situation, you wouldn't know this. When most people hear the words transhuman, they don't necessarily think cyborg or human augmentation. Whenever you hear most people, when they hear transhuman, they think it has something to do with my gender ideology or my sexual preferences. So I think one of the first things we need to do is actually get people to understand the definition of what a transhuman is.
Hmm.
You know, transhuman is, by definition, is anyone that is utilizing technology to either enhance or improve the human condition. So, excuse me, the original term transhuman was actually coined by a natural scientist in London back in the 1950s by the name of Dr. Julian Huxley.
Oh,
And he actually wrote an essay, a medical essay called New Bottles for New Wine. And
okay.
essentially, his essay was about how do we deal with people who have traumatic injuries or birth defects that do not allow them the same level of interactivity as a basic standard human being. If we look at this from a historical perspective, I think, in my opinion, one of the best examples would be the pirate with the peg leg. You know, you
Mhm,
had an individual who had some kind of an accident, lost a limb. Without some kind of enhancement, they would not be able to function properly within the world. So, by Dr. Huxley's philosophy, anyone that has a deficiency within the human body should be able to be brought back up to the status quo.
mhm,
So, anyone by today's standards that uses a continuous glucose meter,
mhm,
if you have a insulin pump, if you have a hearing aid, if you have a pacemaker, you are a transhuman, according to Dr. Huxley's philosophy. So it's anyone that's using technology to bring the human back up to base. In the late 60s, early 70s, there was another gentleman by the name of FM 2030. Now, most people have never heard of FM, but most people know his work. And I'm really glad he changed his name to FM 2030 because I cannot pronounce his real, birth name. I want to say it was something like Freudian or Freulen or something along those lines. But FM 2030 is actually one of the godfathers and the founders of cryogenics. And he's actually buried or sitting in cryostasis somewhere in California right now. And he chose the name FM 2030 because, in his mind, by the time we reach 2030, he should be able to be thought out and his ailments addressed and he could live on. But his philosophy on transhumanism that was we should be able to do beyond just resetting the baseline. If
mhm.
there's something on the table that would enhance or improve the human condition, this should be on the table.
Okay.
And when it comes to why did I do it personally, I didn't follow the natural progression to get to cybersecurity that most do. I didn't go to college for computer science. I was actually a black hat. I was a cyber criminal. I'm a retired one percenter outlaw motorcycle gang member. And I came to the way of security through practical application. And we can get into this more later, but the truth is I've been into body modification since I was 15. I tell people I have one tattoo. It starts at my neck and goes all the way to the tops of my feet. And I'm also a big fan of uh, more of the extreme body mods. So I do flesh hook suspensions.
Wow.
And when the opportunity was presented to me that we could now implant microchip technology, for me, it was just the next step in natural progression and evolution for me as a person. And the one thing that most people don't realize is once you take technology and you put it in vivo or inside the skin,
Yeah.
excuse me, those devices, whether they're medical devices or not, take on the same medical protections provided under here in the United States under the HIPAA laws, and even more so in the European Union under GDPR. So they are basically protected through law, and I have legal governmental protections and obfuscation for what are essentially offensive and defensive cybersecurity tools.
Nice. Unbelievable. I mean, you just shared bunch of, I mean, I would say not insider information, but like, not many people would know that. So I truly appreciate that, And as a follow-up to this, what you said, was there a moment, in your opinion, when technology actually stopped being just a tool and started becoming part of our identity? You know, You know where I'm going.
I know where you're going with that, and honestly, it wasn't when I started putting technology into my body. I think as a species,
Mm.
we stopped using technology, and technology started using us with the advent and the proliferation of the World Wide Web.
Mhm.
I prior to the interconnectivity of the internet being a common thing for pretty much most citizens, I remember when I had my 8086 or my 386 DX2, yeah, or excuse me, 486 DX2, it was just a box in my house. There was no connectivity. That was me using the machine. But
Uh-huh.
once we actually, as a species, started getting that on time, all the time connections, I feel like the machines stopped being a tool that we were using, and then we became the tool that the machines were using.
Uh-huh.
So for me, that was the big point where I saw technology is now beyond the individual, and the it became a point where we became part of a larger collective, in my opinion.
Okay. Okay, got it. To me, it's fascinating, what you're doing. To me, you're not just observing the future, you're just living inside it, Len. Love it, truly love it. Okay, so I think I want to talk about. Oh, there you go. Yeah, show it again. What was it?
This is actually just a bottle cap that's connected to a biosensing magnet that I have in my pinky. So this is not necessarily an offensive tool. This doesn't have a lot of power, so I can lift a bottle cap or a paper clip, but what it does is it allows me to actually be able to feel electromagnetic fields and currents, so I am acutely aware of some of the invisible waves that we're walking through and living in as a part of general society.
Oh,
So
wow.
it gives me almost a sixth sense. It provides an additional sense that I was not born in,
I
and,
remember
if
that
we
movie.
and then I've got the large, one on the top of my right hand. That is a combination RFID and an NFC microchip that actually will read through the meat of my hand, and if you put your cell phone in my hand, I can actually compromise your mobile device through NFC triggers.
No way. Wow.
Way.
This is Mr. No way. But yes way. Okay, cool,
Absolutely.
awesome. I love it. Okay, I want to talk next. I want to talk about AI and what I think it's like collapse of trust. And I think I'm sure you would agree, and many people are saying that AI is changing more than productivity. It is changing trust itself. So what I'm trying to ask you, what is already happening right now that most ordinary people still underestimate, in that space.
Oh, I think the one thing that most people underestimate is the validity and the correctness of AI. I mean, I'm looking at your image here. 96% deep fakes have been undetected. I've actually been deep faked, believe it or not.
Oh, oh no.
Yeah,
Tell me.
in I was doing a search on myself, which I do about once every other month, just because when you do crazy things like augment yourself. I wound up on religious extremist websites. I've been doxxed, but you always kind of want to know what people are saying about you. And I found a picture of me that was actually taken from a conference biopic that somebody had used really, really bad deepfake to try and have me selling identity security products in France. And I know this may sound bad towards me, but I don't speak French and I definitely don't speak it fluently,
Uh-huh.
but there I
Me
was
neither.
on an advertisement speaking French for a company that I didn't work for. So it was at first I was very shocked, and then I was actually kind of insulted that if you were going to deep fake me, could you at least make it look good? I mean, this wasn't Sora 3. This was like, you know, 1950s. Top part of the face doesn't move, just the mouth moves. It doesn't match the words. It was like, if I'm gonna be in that same group with Elon Musk and
Oh,
any Taylor Swift and all the other deep fakes, could you at least make it look realistic? I felt cheated.
exactly. Let's make it real at least. Okay, cool, cool. Um, so speaking about this, collapse of trust and all that stuff, do you think we're already in the trust crisis? Because that's what I'm concerned, or
No,
is it the
no.
biggest, is the biggest shock still ahead of us, in that
Oh,
space?
I think the biggest shock is way ahead of us. There are people like myself, like you, like the Secure by Design podcast that,
Yeah.
we're out here talking about the threats. We're warning everybody. We are that guy that's sitting on the soapbox going, this is coming. Be afraid. Warning, warning.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, nobody cares. And,
Yeah.
to me, that's the point. And you just say is the biggest, you know, uh, wake up calls yet to come. Yes, because I think most of the continent, or not the continent, but most of the population is still essentially asleep to the dangers.
I
I
think
mean,
so.
one thing, if you really take a look at what's going on, let's just talk about LLMs for just a second.
Uh-huh.
Take your pick. It doesn't matter. Your Grok, Claude, Chat GPT. Take your pick.
Yeah. Perplexity,
What we're
whatever.
No, it just doesn't matter which one it is because they're all following the same model.
Exactly.
We all look at this and it's like everybody wants to, number one, believe the output without question. But even worse than that, if you just look at the standard terms of use, anything that you put into these models becomes the property of the model and the company that owns it. So we, as security professionals, we understand what it means to be data mined.
Uh-huh.
And as a privacy advocate, like I am, I have gone out of my way to try and limit the information that I put out there to the world.
Yep.
But when it comes to any of the LLMs, we are essentially paying the company to data mine us. We are paying for someone to take our ideas.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's once people realize what it is that they're giving up in order to be able to get the functionality and get the use of these types of services, that's when the big aha moment is going to happen. But that's not going to happen until there is a equally large pain point, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, nowadays, I mean, I hope people are starting to realize that they're giving up their own private data, but
Hmm.
I'm looking back, 10 years ago or so, even more than that, when first, when after the I think I must say after the dot-com bubble, burst, and we had, like Google that stayed, Facebook, whatever, and they've done the smartest thing ever. They gave everything for free to people, right?
Well, if
But
you're
they
not
stole
paying
our
for anything, then
identity
you
pretty
are the
much.
product.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
if they're not charging you for it and it's a service, then you are the product that's actually for sale.
exactly, exactly. People get excited too quickly about this. When I was in actually went to college, and and one of my marketing classes that I remember. One thing I don't remember much, but I remember one thing. There's no free lunches,
Nope.
and and pretty much that kind of stayed with me until today. And I know if something is free, as you said, you're already a product. So okay, so I guess to your comment, I mean, I think this that what is what the whole thing is what makes this larger than cybersecurity space. I think once trust starts, breaking down, the impact spreads into my life, your life, everyday life. Businesses, even relationships. And the society itself. So it is
Well,
a
I mean,
very
and to your
complex. Yeah.
to your point, when it comes, we're looking at the collapse of trust. One thing that I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but if you're not, I wanted to throw it out here.
Uh-huh.
Are you familiar with the Cognitive Security Institute?
No, I know what cognitive means, but security, I'm not sure in that context. So please explain.
So I'm part of another organization, non for profit. They're called the Cognitive Security Institute.
Okay.
And what they're doing, and this is ran and initiated by a gentleman by the name of Win Schwartau. If you, and I'm sure you've heard of Win before.
Yes.
Win was actually the one of the godfathers of cybersecurity. He was the one that actually
Right.
testified before Congress back in the 80s and coined the term digital Pearl Harbor. So what he's done in conjunction with quite a few other cybersecurity professionals is he has realized that the mind is actually the next cyber attack battleground.
Mm.
And it's through the use of things like the deep fakes, the overabundance of misinformation, trying to provide influence through marketed media campaigns, that we need to start looking at the brain as an attack surface and our cognition as an attack surface, and use the fundamentals that we've already learned through cybersecurity and find cognitive defenses so that we can actually understand the difference and sort through what is propaganda, what is deep fake, and what is actually real. Because I personally believe, as does a lot of the people within the Cognitive Security Institute, that as we move forward into this more AI technological deep fake connected world, that the truth is actually going to become one of the most valuable commodities that we can acquire.
I truly believe so. Because as Elon Musk and all these smart brains out there are talking about the efficiency of AI is gonna be fulfilled when we actually connect our brains, right? If we connect our
Uh-huh.
you know where so this is where I don't know, they're talking about this as something that you know like a peak of all AI capabilities, but I would say there is more behind it, right? And
Absolutely.
for us people, ordinary people, this is a I don't want to call this like anything, but to me, it's a question mark. I mean, once we hit connect and we are connected, and if our brain is able to actually, you know, be in the cloud, so to speak,
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not that smart to envision this.
Well, there's a couple of things that we need to talk about as far as that goes, and first off, being if we're looking at current actual functionality of pretty much all brain computer interfaces, we're
Uh
still
huh.
at a very rudimentary point.
Uh huh.
And that is, we can do up, down, left, right, click. We can add some machine learning, kind of like you would have on your cell phone, if so you could have a little bit of predictive
Yep.
analytics as you're typing. But the ability to download the brain, we are still quite a ways away from that. And if you're interested in that concept, the ability to kind of fork your brain almost like a GitHub, I would advise you to check out an organization called the 2045 Project. Not to be mistaken with the 2025 Project, but the 2045 Project is a non for profit that actually believes that we will be able to download our consciousness to digital format by the year 2045. And they actually have a website. I want to say it's 2045project.org is what I believe it is.
Okay.
Um, but even
Yeah.
beyond that, let's, if we take a look at what's going on today, everybody knows about Neuralink. I would also advise people to go ahead and check out another BCI company based out of Australia called Synchron. You know,
Okay.
much different installation methodology, less threat to patient and lower entry point for the surgeon. But one of the things that we're not talking about, and this is something that was actually brought up by Neuralink's patient one, a gentleman by the name of Nolan Arbaugh,
Uh
is
huh.
who owns the neural data? We're
Uh,
we're we're pushing forward towards this utopian future, but he is actually leading the charge for what is now being looked at as the need for neural data privacy laws. I mean, once you put a BCI or connect your brain to a system, by the standard EULA, any of the data that's collected by that device becomes the property of the device owner. So
I
at this
see.
point, even though he has already stated that, he wouldn't change it because it's given him more freedom in a situation where he didn't have mobility, he's now worried about what is Neuralink going to do with the rest of his neural data. I mean, if we look at just the types of things that BCIs can actually detect, you have almost like a built-in lie detector in your brain. And this
Exactly.
is something that, we need, before we start moving things out on a rapid scale, we do need to understand and have some type of definition around what belongs to the medical device and the company and what needs to remain private to the individual.
Hmm.
And when it comes to the download portion of the brain, as a society, we're going to have to move quite a bit beyond the current moral lines that have been drawn in the sand. Because
Um,
right now, the only people that would even be able to get one of these types of devices would be somebody that is in severe medical peril. They're a shut in, they're a quadriplegic. Elon Musk isn't, walking in and getting a BCI because he doesn't need one. So
yeah.
before we could even get to the point of discussions of downloading the brain, we would have to get past the definitions of elective surgery that requires open skull or interfacing to a brain surgical procedure.
Yes, and I was just listening and thinking, in my head. But I mean, correct me if I'm speaking nonsense here. But like for me, downloading the brain, I'm also thinking about the free will that we have as humans. Free will, and
Hmm?
when I'm thinking downloading the brain, connecting it to the cloud, isn't that a danger of like losing the control? And what I'm trying to say, losing or giving up the free will, so to speak.
I
Isn't
believe so
isn't that the
100%.
danger zone?
I think so. I mean, I guarantee you that there are things, and this goes for anyone out there.
Mhm.
Anybody can say I'm transparent. I'm a clear pane of glass. I'm not hiding anything. Everybody has secrets. And if
Yeah.
you're downloading your brain, all of those secrets theoretically would go with it. And until we can get to a point where we can say, I want to back up this thought and this thought. But
Exactly.
no. That time I got my butt kicked when I was 12 for talking a bunch of garbage to a bunch of people, and I got no, I don't back that one up. Whatever it is, we at this point, like I said, we're at the infancy of this technology.
Mhm.
So the ability to be selective in terms of what gets backed up and what isn't, that's not going to be something that happens in the beginning. When we do get to the point where we can probably do a brain dump, for lack of a better term, it's going to take the entire thing. This is going to be a full backup. And then, I had this discussion with a friend of mine the other day. When let's just say we do get to that point, it's not like you're going to have the conscious memories of what's going on in the digital world and in the physical world.
Yep.
This is gonna be just like a GitHub repo where you're gonna fork off of the main tree.
Yeah.
You're gonna keep going, and you're gonna have your singular pane of consciousness, and whatever happens with that digital is going to happen in that digital. It's not like you're going to be in both places at the same time. So, does that really provide immortality, or does it provide a semblance of a digital form in perpetuity?
Right.
It's not like, one day you're gonna wake up in your bed, go, "I'm gonna download into the computer," and then the physical body is going to be just left alone, and it's just gonna lay there and decay. You're gonna keep going. And I
Yep.
think there's a lot of science fiction that has been mixed into the propaganda around these types of technologies,
Mhm.
but that's one of the reasons why I've stepped out and tried to show the world not only is augmentation done for medical purposes, but now I'm one of over 150,000 individuals globally that have these extra human characteristics and capabilities, but I've
Nice.
done it because of my own choice.
Mhm. So let me ask you a question. So what's your guess, time frame? When is that gonna happen?
Honestly, it's already happening. I mean, just to show some of the stuff that I'm working on right now. So this one right here, this is
Uh-huh.
actually a blood oxygen implant that will allow you to be able to get wireless O2 saturation level reports sent to your cell phone.
No way.
This
Wow.
little guy right here, which kind of looks like a micro SIM for a cell phone, that is actually a MyFair Classic and 300 other physical access protocol implants. So if you don't ever want to have your to worry about your getting into your building or your garage or whatever, you can program all of those down to an implant.
All right,
This
cool.
one right here is the one that really gets most people. So this is actually a 1 terabyte implantable hard drive that's going to be going into my arm within the next 30 to 60 days. And
Wow.
this will give me the ability to exfiltrate data. And just like I said before, under HIPAA and GDPR, the authorities are not even allowed to ask me. So I've said since I started doing a lot of the biohacking attacks, how do you prevent an attack that if number one, if you don't know it exists, and number two, how do you stop it if you can't even ask the questions to find out and do an honest troubleshooting because of the current medical privacy laws? It becomes very,
Unbelievable.
very difficult, almost impossible if you're on the defender side. Because there's no way for you to find out short of a full body x-ray or some kind
Mhm.
of archway that has a full spectrum analyzer looking on every single different wireless protocol frequency to even determine if I have one.
Wow. That is fascinating, and thanks for actually displaying this to all listeners here, and those that could be watching us. So awesome, awesome. I mean, and another thing I want to also mention. I mean, coming on when on what you said is there's so much. Just talking about AI, and all these threads and all that stuff. I think there's majority of that stuff is all negative news. Everything is, we are in the black hole, whatever. There is so little of people like you, Len, actually, taking this and turning this new face of this space into a very different light. And I just want to say thank you for this, because I really admire. I mean, I'm also like, I have my, my favorite, like, podcasts and shows that I watch myself. And I the moment I see like complain, AI is gonna, do all the bad stuff to us. um I turn it off. I mean, I'm like tuned out totally. But there are some people that are, can actually show us, like you are showing us, that this is actually very positive. I mean, there is no harm.
Mhm.
This is something that we as human can actually utilize in a very positive way. So just a comment on that, because people majority of people think AI as a threat to us, and especially in the job space. That's the
Well,
big, you know
it to me, AI is just another tool.
it
A
is.
hammer a hammer can build a house or a hammer could break somebody's arm. It's a tool. It's how it's used and who's
Exactly.
using it.
Exactly.
You know,
But
and
those.
I think that is one of the things that people need to kind of focus on. But, the one thing that I'm looking at, one of the projects that I've been working on the side with a good friend of mine, Dr. Morgan Reese,
Uh-huh.
is can these implants act as a source of truth for an individual? I mean, we keep talking about the concept of AI, the collapse of trust. I mean, even if you look at the Hong Kong incident, last year or 2 years ago, or, when that financial worker gave up $25 million,
Uh-huh.
there is no SSL for an individual human being. There's
Yeah.
no way for you where you're sitting right now in the studio, you don't know for a fact that you're talking to the real Len Noe, because
I don't.
we don't
Are
have
you real,
anything,
Len? Are you
you
real?
know you know, I could say I am, but let's be honest, if I was an adversarial actor or somebody trying to impersonate Len, I would tell you yes anyway.
Exactly.
And one of the things that
Exactly.
I'm working on right now as a side project is, utilizing self-sovereign identity, which is a decentralized identity framework.
Mhm.
Can that, in a conjunction with something like the Vivo key implants, which are FIPS compliant, blockchain compatible, crypto bionic security chips,
Wow.
can this act as a private key to an individual human being? There I'm are you familiar with the application Keybase?
I've heard. Yeah, I've heard
So
it.
Keybase is one of those, early adoption services where you can go in and set your identity, validate your identity, and it'll give you almost like a PGP key that you can use to try and prove your own identity. Is
Mhm.
something like implanted technology, is this a way that we as human beings can remain relevant in this new hyper-connected environment by allowing us to be able to interface to the machines and provide some type of source of truth for communications and individual validation?
Nice. Okay, so let's follow on. I mean, we mentioned deep fakes, um, and the whole war on identity. That's what I'm going. Um, so we hear more and more about those deep fakes, and synthetic identity. In your opinion, Len, are we entering a world where proving you are really you, this is what we actually talked about in a second ago, becomes harder than protecting your password?
Yes. And you say we're entering, I would challenge that we're already here.
Yeah, I
I
should take
mean,
that question back.
I think we're already there. And if you look at just how AI has been integrated into so many new styles of phishing attacks, you
Mhm.
know, the like I said, the issue with the Hong Kong banker, this is the world that we're living in, and it's happening every day. I mean, are you familiar with the AIDB?
No, what is it?
There is a website that I would implore you as well as all of your listeners to go check out. It's called the AI Incident Database.
Uh-huh.
This is a independently hosted website that is tracking pretty much any type of AI that actions that have caused negative repercussions from simple deep fakes up to complete identity takeovers. So, I think it's very telling that, we keep forging forward even to the point where, we're trying to restart some of the nuclear reactors on 3 Mile Island out in, just to be able to deal with the power consumption for AI data centers, but we're not looking at the damage that these things are causing. And
Yeah.
to me,
Mm.
it's very telling when people keep giving you nothing but new features and they refuse to talk about the potential downsides. I think it shows a lack of responsibility, a lack of transparency, and just to go back to the Wizard of Oz, just pay no attention to the AI behind the curtain.
Exactly.
It's good for you, it's good for you, and if somebody keeps telling you how great something is, you m I would advise that you do a little bit of your own research and realize that no matter what it is, there's always gonna be some negative sides to it, and I
Uh-huh.
think until we start looking at that from a more responsible perspective, it's going to be individuals like me, individuals like you that are gonna be looked at as the outcast and the naysayers. But unfortunately, until there's some type of a really large pain point, until it happens to them, they're not going to be willing to listen because
Yeah.
they're too fandangled by all of the bells and the whistles and the fancy babbles and baubles.
Very well put. Yeah, so to me it's like, the attack surface is no longer just our, devices pretty much. It's, I think, I'm going to say becoming. It is our identity, our reputation, so to speak, and credibility at the end of the day as well. So,
Yeah, I mean, and back to case in point, I never when we already discussed when I got deep faked, but it never occurred to me that somebody like me would be deep faked.
huh,
I wasn't, a movie star. I'm not a
yeah,
politician. I'm just, another cybersecurity professional.
yeah.
But it was at that moment, and this applies to you as well. Any of us that have any type of public platform or any type of reputation within our individual industries, we're all a target now, and you don't have to be a millionaire. You don't have to be, a movie star. You don't have to be a business industry leader. If somebody can make money off of you and your image, you're a target. It may not be the same volume of money, but anybody who's a professional or well respected in their field needs to understand that you are a target now.
Yes. Yes. And you don't have to be a well-known person at all. So that's another thing. True. Yeah.
100% agree.
uh, let's talk about some, emotions. So, um, I think one of the most complex ideas in this new era is that emotions themselves may become or are an attack surface. And how would you react to that statement?
I
Any?
would say that you're 100% right. And I would actually direct this, re-steer this conversation back to the Cognitive Security Institute.
Okay.
This, this group is exactly what you're talking about right now. The cognition, the emotions,
Mhm.
this is the new attack surface.
Mm,
And, you know, utilizing the same principles that we've learned through cybersecurity, we can actually adapt those to cognitive techniques to actually protect ourselves.
right.
Because when it comes to the amount of misinformation and disinformation that's being thrown at us, the human brain can't keep up. There's a wonderful, wonderful book about this, and it was written again by my associate, Mr. Win Schwartau. It's called "The Art and Science of Meta War," and I would highly recommend this because it absolutely gives a different perspective on what we're seeing in terms of large social media campaigns, the distrust within the current media structure for news outlets, uh, phishing campaigns, AI, deepfake. He does an amazing way of tying it all together. And
Mhm.
again, the name of that book is called the Art and Science of Meta War.
Thank you. Thank you. This is really I really appreciate you mentioning all these sources. This is a very valuable addition to our listeners. They can just go back and do their own digging. So thanks. This is value added, definitely, Len. But
And as far as if I can throw this out there real quick, uh, anybody that's interested in the Cognitive Security Institute, their website is the cognitivesecurityinstitute.org. And I highly suggest anybody that's interested in trying to maintain sanity in this new ultra connected world, go give them a read. If it's not your thing, then that's fine. But this is, in my opinion, one of the best brain trusts of really, really intelligent people that are looking at the
Mhm.
human consciousness, cognition, and just how we can interface in this world in a positive way. They've got some of the best minds I've ever had the experience to converse with.
Nice, nice, very good. Appreciate that also. So you know, another like thought that I had in my head when, like, for example, people begin building emotional bonds with AI companions.
Oh, no.
where does connection where does connection end and manipulation begin? That's my question.
Anytime that somebody is getting money or can
There you
monetize
go.
what you're talking about, that
uh,
is, in my opinion, where the line is drawn.
so
You know,
when
I,
you
I
don't
just wrote an
know, it's money, huh?
Yep. I mean, I just put out an article on Medium about a week ago, and it was called, the name of the article was "People Are Falling in Love with AI," literally.
Mm,
And,
mhm.
some of the statistics I learned when I wrote that article, I know that you guys love to talk about, controversial things on this podcast. So I'm going to actually throw out a quick statistic here. Let me pull this up. The amount of people, here we go, it's the topic is called "The Modern Sex Recession." The rise of AI companionship is occurring alongside another powerful social trend. Young adults are actually having less sex than previous generations. Research analyzing the United States survey data from 2000 to 2018 found that sexual inactivity among young men increased dramatically. And by the late 2010s, approximately one third of men aged 18 through 24 reported no sexual activity within the last previous year.
Wow.
And weekly sexual activity amongst American adults declined from approximately 55% in
Mhm.
1990 to roughly 37% by 2024. And a lot of this is around the inability for individuals to actually form meaningful physical relationships
Yeah.
due to augmented concepts of reality through
Mhm.
pornography and artificial intelligence, and especially these AI companions.
Exactly. This is, I mean, interesting statistics. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I was just reading about like there's an AI agent out there, without naming it, but it's like a virtual girlfriend or virtual boyfriend, type of a thing. And and actually, the Gen Z are actually big users. I mean,
Absolutely.
unbelievable.
Yeah,
I mean, you know.
I I was gonna say, like I said, go check out. I'll send you. I'm gonna send you the link to
Yeah,
this
please do.
article,
Please do.
uh, and if you wouldn't mind just making it available for the people, that would be great. But no,
We'll try.
I just don't understand, and we can take this right back to the last conversation, earlier part of the conversation,
Mhm.
where anything that goes into that AI becomes the property of the AI and the AI holder. So,
Exactly.
it's one thing if I'm going to say, help me make a PowerPoint or redo my resume. It's a completely different thing when we start looking at the idea that you could be giving up intimate details of your life, and is
Yeah,
this something that if this isn't something that you would want to say in a crowded room, why would you be
exactly.
telling it to somebody that can use that, data mine it, and then use that to help push influence and sell that to someone who might have a
Yeah,
product that would align with that ideology?
exactly. So the question is, where is the borderline, So that's
Well,
the
to
thing.
me, the borderline is right here in this chair. It's between this chair and that keyboard, and unfortunately, we as I've said this a lot, over the course of this podcast, we've just grabbed what we see because it's flashy, and we've never stopped to actually look at the potential damages or what we're actually giving up.
Mhm.
And I think that goes even deeper, because if you take a look just at the I you and I both look like we're past the age of 30,
Yeah. Ah,
so
going on.
I'm not going to get into how old we are, but I'd say that we're seasoned.
I
Do you
like that.
remember when you remember when we were younger?
I do.
I'm not even gonna go back to when we were kids, but let's go back, 15, 20 years. When, right around that point where the internet started coming out and people were starting to do online banking. If there was a breach, it was front page news.
Mhm.
If somebody leaked data,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
on every major news channel, it was on every local news channel, it was everywhere. Now it's almost like we've devalued our own individuality, and we've just accepted the idea that service providers or companies are not going to be secure in our data, and we're just used to getting that email that says, "I'm sorry, we screwed up. Your All of your personal information was released. Here's 6 months worth of identity insurance."
Yeah.
And we've just gone, "Oh, okay."
Yeah,
We
yeah.
don't re we the the accountability aspect of holding someone's PII and PIB is not equal to the repercussions if that trust is broken.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we've just learned to accept it and consider it just the cost of doing daily business.
Yeah, and I do remember that, Len, for sure. And I think, as back then it was, front of the news and major headlines. Now this is more opposite. Now it's sweeping it under the red carpet and, you know,
Yep.
praying that no one it's not a public information, as a matter of fact. So
And the screwed up part to that is there is laws about disclosure here in the United States, and they're nowhere near as severe as they are in with under GDPR in the European Union. But
correct.
even like you said, they announce it, but it's on page 3 underneath, an advertisement for, a used
Pro
furniture store.
print. Yeah, I know.
But we need to remember that, and I've said this for years. I love talking to people. I love educating people, and I'm sure you've heard this same thing when you're talking security. Well, I don't have anything that anybody wants, so I'm not worried.
Mhm. Yeah,
It could be just your box. It could just be just your connection. You
exactly.
know, but
Simple thing.
everybody
Simple
has
thing.
value.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, who does an attack? From a black hat perspective, or a dark cyber offensive, who's going to do that from their own machine? Nobody.
Mm,
We're going to
nobody.
proxy chain. I'm going to hack him. Then I'm going to go from him to him to him to him to him to him to him. And if you're at the end of that chain, you're the guy that has to explain to the very fancy lawyers and the CIA and the FBI that you were not the one that actually committed that attack. You
Yeah.
know,
So
everybody's digital
yeah,
persona has value, even if it's only to you, and it should mean something to you.
big time, big time. 100%, 100% agreed. Okay, so uh, since we agreed, me and you, that future is closer than we think, I think the future is here already, and and
Mhm.
and I'm sure you agree with me.
Oh,
So
I'm living proof of it.
you're living in it, right? Um, so now let me ask you something.
Mhm.
Uh, you are known for not giving safe, sanitized predictions, so to speak.
Correct.
So let me ask you very straightforward and directly: what future is coming faster than society is emotionally prepared for?
The con implantable medical devices,
Ah,
which will provide a layer of abstraction between the patient and the doctor. I if you take a look right now, one of the newest things that we're seeing is the Aspire sleep apnea implant.
yeah.
And there's also been multiple new patents that have been filed from many different medical providers for everything from implantable drug distribution systems all the way up to nanotechnology. So I think that is going to be one of the biggest differences. And unfortunately, this also brings me back to the same point that I made earlier, that we are looking at things from a what is this going to do for me perspective, but not
Yep.
necessarily from the what will the medical industry take from me as its pound of flesh for giving me these types of
Uh-huh.
capability. I'm all about the integration of the biological human to technology, because I do believe 100% that, if you look at how fast technology is moving, how fast AI is moving,
Yep.
we as human beings do need to make changes if we want to stay relevant and be able to compete in the same arenas as these new technologies. But at the same time, I don't think it should be anything that should be mandated. I don't think it should be forced. And I also think that we need to have some type of privacy laws around these devices, what they're actually able to do and what they are not able to do, based on our own individuality and what should be considered personal and what should be considered necessitated for the functionality of those devices. So I
Nice.
think that's going to be the big one. And
Nice.
if you take a look at just what's going on with graphene technology right now in terms of the batteries,
Uh-huh.
the only reason that I don't have a fully implanted computer in myself yet is because all of the prototypes I built, they run too hot. There's no way to
Ah,
recharge the batteries.
right.
I don't have access to medical grade battery technology, but that doesn't mean that it's not coming. And right now, all of my attacks are passive. I have to have the receiver on the mobile device. I have to be able to interface with the card reader on the wall. But once we can get to the point where I can power those internal chips and on a microcontroller, I've been working for 5 years now to build and develop a prototype single board computer like a Raspberry Pi Zero W that can be implanted so I can start making active attacks against people. And I'm not going to stop until it gets there. So
Exactly.
it, we as human beings are the ultimate in attack vector. We are the ultimate in zero day because of the laws and just the inability for the defenders to even be able to detect. So I implore people, I don't want to leave everybody with the thought that this is just an unwinnable situation because it's not.
It's not. Yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
we follow basic cybersecurity fundamentals, any single point of failure, an augmented human, we have the ability to compromise those. We have adaptive MFA towards anything on a network that is of value. We have step up authentication, something you have, something you are. Are you coming from a known device? Are you coming in during known times? Basically, just use the same standard types of understanding.
Hmm.
And I will, in terms of the mobile devices, excuse me, this is I'll leave you with this question because I can see we're starting to run low on time.
Yes.
If you wouldn't hand me your purse or your wallet and just let me arbitrarily rummage through it, realize that when it comes to mobile devices, there is infinitely more data on that than you could ever put in a purse or in a wallet. So if you wouldn't do hand me your wallet, don't hand somebody your phone. Be
Hmm.
responsible because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many controls, how many pieces of protective software you want to put on something. Ultimately, you are the one that is ultimately responsible for your own security, and you need to be aware of that and take it seriously.
Yeah. Truly, truly appreciate your perspective on this. And I think, what seems to be really, you know, fiction or something unreal, I think I'm not even talking 5 years. I'm talking very
Mm-mm,
near future is gonna be
3 to 5.
reality.
3 to 5,
Um,
is my
yep.
estimation. I think within the next 3 to 5 years, there is going to be a diametrical shift of what people are expecting in terms of AI integration, augmentation, even, robotics. All of this is going to be we're seeing so much of the groundwork happening right now that
Yep.
I don't think it's gonna be more than 3 to 5 years before we are gonna see the next evolutionary shift in technology.
Yeah, I think something tells me the magical 2030 mark is is definitely worth of noting, and I think after that things will not look the same as we. I mean, the world is not gonna be the same as we know today.
Absolutely.
For sure, for sure. Okay, so let's say just because we can merge more deeply with machines does not mean we should normalize everything. Where is
No.
your line on this? What must remain human led still?
I think when it comes down to it, decision making should always remain human. You know, and
Love
I
it.
have no problem with integration with the technology. I think I've beaten the idea of regulations around what the companies can do with that data to
Hmm.
death, so I don't need to bring it up again. But
Yeah.
I think we need to pause until we can get some safeguards for the individuals who are adopting this technology.
Hmm.
And that's a really hard thing to ask, especially if you've got somebody who's suffering from, some type of ailment or disability. It's hard to say, do you want, the freedoms that come with this? But
Hmm.
in my opinion, it's like making a deal with the electronic devil.
Oh.
We'll give you all of this stuff, but we're going to take this stuff from you. And it leaves that individual in kind of a no win choice. And I
Yeah.
don't begrudge them for making it, but I do think that, after watching what's going on with Mr. Arbaugh and how he is such a staunch advocate for neural data privacy, this is the guy, the first guy that ever got the Neuralink, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm glad I got it, but I want my thoughts to be mine." And that's kind of where I'm at. And that goes into the AI, LLMs, and everything else. Everything that we're giving these machines is building digital profiles on us to the point where it's going to know us better than we did.
Oh,
So I guess it depends on, do you want to be, the digital shepherd, or do you want to be the digital sheep?
yeah. I'd rather be the shepherd. And
Me too.
yeah, so I truly understand what you said, and I truly believe this is the only way. So I also am a big advocate of human in the loop. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
although I know people, some AI experts, some future visionaries. They're saying it's not gonna last too long. The human in the loop aspect. So that is scary. You know.
But then again, if you take a look at me, I'm not just human. So maybe it will take somebody like me, somebody that can actually communicate with the machines on the utilizing the machine's own language. I'll leave you with with this last point. When it came prior to Chat GPT and the LLM, revolution, you had to know how to write code in order to talk to a machine.
Yep.
It could have been Python, it could have been BASIC, maybe it was COBOL, maybe it was Fortran. We can keep going back. Maybe it was assembly, but it wasn't native and it wasn't vernacular. So what did we do? We made the machines able to understand and comprehend simple language. Well, I went the opposite direction. Rather than using English or Spanish or German or some language to talk to the machine, I'm programming a chip and I'm talking to the machine over its native protocols.
Hmm.
And maybe at the end of the day, that's what it's going to require. I don't
Yeah.
know. I think it's at least worth a discussion, and I'm grateful for the platform that you're giving me to even get people to hopefully start having some conversations.
E- e-
And
ex-
to that point, if anybody has a question, reach out, hit me up on LinkedIn. I will answer all questions.
Len, yes. And, to be frank, I would like to ask you maybe to close out this pod today, and maybe if you could, I'm thinking not only for me, but especially for the listeners, when the listeners, finish listening to this episode, what is the one sentence you must want stuck in their minds, like coming straight from you, from a transhuman, guy that has 11 implants. What is that
Mm.
one thing that you want to kind of, so they remember, and when they wake up in a year from now, they will still remember it.
Well, it's not my quote. I'm stealing it from Star Trek.
That's okay.
But resistance to technology is futile. And I'm not talking about everybody's, that's not to say everybody's going to be like me and get implanted, but technology is going to continue to move forward, whether we want it to or not. And you can either be crushed by the wave or you can learn how to surf it,
I love it.
but it's going to keep happening regardless. So getting as much education as you can about the technologies, how to protect yourself against these technologies. I think that's vital. And that's where I think people like me and my discussions around transhumanism, where
Mhm.
people like the Cognitive Security Institute, this is where I think, the value for people is going to be. And I'm going to say, like I said before, I think the truth is eventually going to become the most valuable commodity that we can have. And the more you learn now, the easier being able to detect the truth will be as the technology continues to improve.
I love it. I love it. And I don't mind you took the quote from the Star Trek. By the way, my favorite movie from my times back. And I'm not sure if you know this, but I think almost 92 or 93% of all these gadgets that were in that movie actually are reality right now.
Oh, there's a whole thing about, what, the Star Trek reality,
Yeah.
I've gotten into some really cool philosophical debates on like what would happen if Star Trek didn't have like the tricorder and the little thing. Would our cell phones have originally looked like a flip phone?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
and if you expound on that, what does the technology of 50 years from now look like based off of what we have today?
Yes, watch the Black Mirror series or something like that. I mean, this is all happening. I mean, love it, love it, love it, Len. I mean, Len has been one of the most and unique and thought-provoking conversation I've had on Secure by Design podcast. I think it's my favorite so far.
Oh, thank you.
And I really want to say thank you so much for joining us today. And to all of you watching, if you like today's podcast, please like us, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, and your work colleagues. Help us make some commotions around this brilliant and bold conversation that we had with Len Noe today. So again, cheers to you, Len. I hope to see you soon in person again, and see you next episode to everyone, and stay secure. So long. Bye bye. All right. So.